What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we've got some Destiny 2 news. Now, this is coming from an interview at heavy.com with Destiny 2 community manager Deej. Several interesting topics were discussed, including the raid, public events, clans, and more. So that'll be linked in the description down below if you do want to check out the original source. But let's get started, and let's start out with, I think, what you guys probably want to hear: the raid. Definitely one of the key points of any Destiny game or expansion. The raids is really the key piece of content that makes Destiny stand out. So, Deej was asked by the interviewer, quote, "What some people might not know is there are some pretty serious puzzles in the first Destiny. Are you looking to integrate those more into the core game, or are those strictly for raids and side quests?" And that is definitely a main point of contention within the Destiny community. There has been several really in-depth puzzles and secrets in Destiny, but those have been really relegated to, well, for one, definitely raids. If you look at some of the raid mechanics in the Vault of Glass, in the Wrath of the Machine, they are incredibly complicated when compared to the other aspects of the game, normal story missions and strikes. So a lot of people have been asking for those things to be more scattered around Destiny. Why can't we have somewhat raid-like mechanics, raid-like puzzles in strikes to improve the experience? Well, Deej does respond, saying, quote, "Solving riddles, working together to solve puzzles is definitely an aspect of the Destiny player experience." But he then goes on to say, "There are plenty of people in our community who have never played a raid. So to suddenly take all of these things out of the raids and scatter them across the entire landscape of the game would probably create a barrier for certain people to even finish the game and not understand Destiny." So he's kind of going against that sentiment, that request from the community, saying, look, we can't put raid puzzles in everything. We can't put raid puzzles in normal campaign missions because that would just overcomplicate things. Now, he actually expands on this by saying, quote, "We are doing some interesting things with public events where they would have heroic modifiers. So you're playing a public event with a bunch of people you've never met before, and the more you engage, the more you double down on that public event. The more complex it might become, the better the rewards will become. I don't think we would want to take something as enjoyable as a campaign mission and all of a sudden have a whittler of a puzzler. Then the solo casual player who just wants to go in and blow some stuff up and see some fantastic art that transports their imagination to a strange new world, to interrupt that experience and then go, 'Do you know what binary is?' And that is a good point. Whether or not you want these raid puzzles all over the game, you have to understand that what Dee's saying is correct in essence, that you can't have that same layer of complication literally everywhere. You have to have the build of complication from something simple like a campaign mission, then it gets a little bit more complicated with strikes, then what was said new here, it might get even more complicated with public events. We do know that, yes, any public event in Destiny 2 will, well, on one hand, just go perfectly normally, but will always have the option to trigger something, to do something different, to trigger a heroic mechanic that turns the entire public event into a heroic public event, making it more complicated, more challenging, harder, and also awarding better loot. And from what Deej is saying here, there could be some puzzle-like mechanics within these public events, or they may spawn bosses that have more complicated mechanics to take them down. They're not simply, hey, I have a bunch of health and you have to shoot me. At least if they were, it seems weird that Deej would bring them up. But then eventually the game will progress in complexity to the ultimate complex activity, which is the raids. Now, I think a lot of you may be watching and listening to that and be getting somewhat worried. Is this another example of Destiny 2 somewhat dumbing down for casual players? We have already seen evidence of this a ton, with the best example being subclasses. You can no longer mix and match your subclass perks. You have to choose one specific subclass node and have to choose all of the perks within that specific tree, which is definitely a more casual friendly experience. Well, Deej does somewhat address this by saying, quote, "We definitely go well out of our way to appease the 1%ers, and we want, hopefully, for that number to go up a bit." And then goes on to say that there have been many people who haven't had the chance to beat a raid in Destiny, and that's why they're introducing guided games in Destiny 2, to help more people actually experience that content and become those 1%er players, or, in Deej's hopes, 2%ers. Now, that's a really interesting quote. We definitely go out of our way to appease the 1%ers. He is literally saying those people, like me personally, who just play the game so much, who have thousands of hours and do absolutely everything. They do the raids, they do the challenge modes, they run raids like as a Sherpa to help other people. They're at the tippy top of the Destiny player base. He's saying we go out of our way to appease those people, and that is definitely, I hope, sign of things to come in Destiny 2. Is that, yes, in a lot of ways we've gone casual friendly, but in other ways, Destiny 2 is still going to have those super complicated quests, like going and getting the Outbreak Prime, and the discovery of the Black Spindle, stuff like that, for those elite players to go and chase. That is a good sign, if that quote is correct. But of course, the big activity for those elite 1%er players is the raid, and then further than that, the heroic mode raid, and then the challenge modes for the heroic mode raid. Well, continuing on with this raid topic, we have something really interesting that does come up. The question is asked, for the raid and other post-game content, what are you looking to offer players after they've completed the story? With Deej responding, specifically related to the raid, that is an excellent question, and then laughs. Now, the context to that answer is that earlier he was asked about the DLC. What can you tell us about the first 2 DLC expansions? And Deej said, I can't tell you anything. Basically, he said, I'm going to revert back to that old, cliche. That is an excellent question. And that's all he said. Essentially, again, saying, I can't talk about that at this time. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Why is he doing that same thing? Saying specifically related to the raid, catches himself, and then says, that is an excellent question, and then laughs because he had said that before. Why are they doing that for the raid? And this is one of those cases where Deej saying nothing says a lot. And here's what I mean by that. We all know about the raids. All of you guys watching this video know what the raids are about in Destiny 1. They're the endgame PvE content that rewards specific loot. So why isn't he saying that? If this question was asked and the raids were basically the same in Destiny 2, just different, obviously with different mechanics and different loot, Deej would say something like, oh, well, we know that the raids are the ultimate end game for PvE, rewarding great loot, having great puzzles where people have to work together, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that he literally says, according to the raid, catches himself and stops and says, well, I can't talk about that. That is saying to me that the raids are fundamentally different, that there's something different about them. Maybe in the way they reward loot, maybe in how they are replayable in Destiny 2. The fact of the matter is, by not saying anything, he is saying that again the raids have changed fundamentally and they can't talk about it yet, which is definitely exciting. We already know from a much earlier quote by Luke Smith that the death mechanic is apparently changing in the raids. There's going to be a new way that players are able to respawn and revive and so on, especially with hard mode. Maybe actually with the unveiling of the new survival game mode, where you have a pool of lives, and once that pool reaches 0, you can't respawn anymore. Maybe that's going to have the same mechanic in the raids. Normal mode has unlimited revives, and then hard mode has, let's say, 3 lives in your life pool. 3 times you can die and get revived. That would be really interesting and also add a nice buffer zone, I would think, against glitches. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching have experienced the Crota's and sword disappearing glitch, where it just despawns for no reason and then someone dies because of it. Having a pool of lives is a great way to kind of counteract those imperfect raid moments. Now moving on from there, we have something very interesting that was discussed. We have the question of, will you actually be rewarding players that are actual raid Sherpas, that help players that have never done raids before? Deej responds, are you a member of a clan? And Heavy says, I am. And then Deej says, quote, you'll find that being a member of a clan is extremely beneficial. Every member of your clan will earn rewards as you do things, and the more you do things, the more they will be rewarded. That really is an interesting quote. As you do things, your clan members will be rewarded. The more you do things, the more they'll be rewarded. What the heck is he talking about? Is there a new clan reward system in Destiny 2? Because that's what it would be. Literally, for this quote to make sense, the first thing that popped into my mind, and let me know what you guys think in the comments, but the first thing I thought of was that you're actually going to have like clan experience, and the more your clan does, like if you do raid completions, if you do strike completions, if you do, completions of, whatever the Trials of Osiris is going to be, or even just Crucible games, so on, you're going to level up your clan, and then when you do level up your clan, everyone in your clan is going to get a reward. Like everyone in your clan is going to get a legendary engram every time you level up your clan level. Like, that would actually make sense for the context of this quote, because I don't know what the heck else he would be talking about, other than some sort of system that levels up and rewards your entire clan. That is so cool. If there's actually a system like that in Destiny 2, that is a huge way to bring people together to make and participate in clans in order to get that chance at better loot. Now we also got some information about strikes, with the question being, when it comes to bosses, is Destiny 2 looking to introduce more unique mechanics that are tied to those specific strikes? Deej responds, strike bosses are certainly more elaborate than like a campaign mini-boss, and raid bosses are the ultimate enemies. Figuring these things out while you play is really the essential experience in playing Destiny. Sometimes brute strength is required, sometimes an interesting combination oh boy, I almost just spoiled something. And that's hopefully just saying that Bungie is improving strikes and strike bosses even more so in Destiny 2. I mean, the Inverted Spire strike boss was relatively complicated, with 3 different arenas with different mechanics all encompassed around that boss fight. So hopefully we'll see more things like that in Destiny 2. And so guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. Now if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.